A bloody tragedy in the Vladan Empire. An R-rated romance fantasy novel. Born as the child of a concubine, the male lead was abandoned by his mother and grew up neglected in the imperial palace. Harboring resentment toward his younger sibling, who had grown up with everything, he entered a marriage of convenience. But his wife just happened to resemble his mother, arousing both love and resentment in him. Needless to say, after that, the story develops into a tragic romance befitting its title. This synopsis really intrigued this particular girl. Even reading the pre-release reviews, where critics thought the violence in the novel was far too graphic, it only piqued her interest further. However, remembering she was in public, she didn't want other people to see the erotic and brutal scenes. She couldn't keep reading this here. Unfortunately, she'd be midway through the crosswalk, where Truck-kun was ready to claim another victim. They say good memories are supposed to flash before your eyes when you're about to die. But the only thing she thought at this moment was,
"Please, don't let anyone see my phone."
She woke up gasping, in the body of a young girl with red hair and green eyes. She had no idea how she was alive. But this is reincarnation, transmigration, isekai. Who cares why? We know where this is going. Her mother began scolding her for napping again, when she was supposed to be gathering mushrooms for dinner. The freshly reborn girl wondered where she was, and who she was. So, to logically move the plot forward, the mother told Lucette this is the mountain behind Senon Village, where they live. Lucette was startled, remembering Senon Village resided deep within the mountains that bordered the great Vladan Empire. She was resurrected in the violent, X-rated romance novel. I've never heard a story like this before. A week later, she was living it up, enjoying the mushroom stew her mother made for her. Lucette and her mother Chelsea lived a simple life. Her father passed away from illness when she was little. The village was located in the mountains furthest away from the capital. The lord here is said to have originally been a commoner musician, but he obtained his title for being a talented composer. In other words, this was the perfect place for Lucy to live worry-free. Inside the palace, where the novel was set, was a dog-eat-dog world. But that had nothing to do with a commoner like Lucy. Hot food and a loving family. This is the ideal life she's always wanted. Enjoying the peaceful countryside, she spotted some of the village boys bullying another, stealing his glasses. They were poking at the boy until he fell into the river and continued to hound him, threatening to crush his glasses. Lucette kicked the boy holding them, not willing to stand this any longer, and the bullied boy caught her from the corner of his eye. She offered her hand, and now the two could see each other very clearly. Then you need to like this video and subscribe to my channel, because here at My Shoujo Weekly, I'm getting sleepy over the hours I'm losing trying to get these videos out to you. But don't worry, you can fix that, my dear viewer, by watching this video to the very end, making it worth my tireless efforts to bring you stories with action, romance, and hot guys, of course. So come on, hit that subscribe. I'm begging you guys. Still offering her hand because he wasn't moving, she thought of his eyes as pretty as jewels. The bully wasn't done though, asking why she was butting in, and added that girls should stay quiet and mind their own business. She shouted at him, asking why they were tormenting a kid who didn't do anything wrong, and that's when they brought up his blood-red eyes. Everyone in the village knew that the Empire, which often went to war, considered a bloody red color to be ominous. But she wasn't going to let them pick on the boy for some old superstition. She asked the boys if they were going to bully her for her ominous colored hair, then played a little bit of crocodile tears, saying she was going to tell her mom that the hair color passed on by her dead papa was ominous. And so, the bullies retreated and left the glasses behind. She scoffed, picking up the glasses and giving them back to the boy. She noticed his hands were trembling and felt concerned that he might be weak-bodied. She was worried he might catch a cold at this rate. They went back to his place, but she didn't remember a house always being in this location. Seeing inside, she was in awe because his house was like a secret library, and she was also an avid reader. As she began to dig through his things, he thought about how accepting her here went against all proper etiquette and rules, but wondered why it felt alright if it was her. She noticed he was still soaking wet and asked if he was going to change clothes. He was a little startled, responding it was rude to leave a guest alone, and she giggled over his good manners and shoved him off. She thought he was such a cute boy. Looking at all these books, she thought about how he was a little awkward, perhaps reserved, because he likes to study. It was at the tip of her tongue until she guessed the word to describe him. And aha! She realized he was a total nerd! She then discovered a foul-smelling concoction and nearly dropped it. That's when the boy returned, coldly asking what she was doing and giving a serious glare. She gulped, hoping he wasn't too mad. She tried pleading for forgiveness, but he had no idea what she was sorry for. He just brought some cookies they could eat together, and she was so happy. These were the yummiest cookies she ever tasted. The two began to chat, and turns out the boy moved to the village 4 days ago. He flinched, with her pointing out that this spot was a really empty lot before, but he just played it off, saying this house had been here since he arrived. She asked about his books, and at first, he just explained they were on philosophy, then began to ramble and blathered limitlessly about the concepts of metaphysical essentialism, the difference in perception between subject and object, and transcendental ontology. Lucette chuckled, because him speaking on his vast amount of knowledge and focus on his interest put him in his own world. He then started to cough, causing her concern, but he'd mend his ailment by chugging the gross-smelling medicine that apparently only worked for him. She wondered what kind of illness he had to take such potent medicine, but didn't want to be too nosy. She suddenly hurried off back home, making him wonder if he did something wrong. Did he talk too much? Was it the coughing, or did she notice the strangeness of this place? His Highness remembered Labdanum, telling him that no one must learn of his identity, and that they'd cast a brainwashing spell on the village to protect him. If an exception showed up, no matter who it was, they'd have to disappear. It was strange, being condemned, ignored, and abandoned for having red eyes. He was fine with it all, because he was used to it. But why did he feel so lonely now? Then suddenly, he heard banging at his door. Lucette returned, bringing her mom's mushroom stew. She didn't want him to get heartburn taking medicine on an empty stomach. He enjoyed the delicious soup, and finally learning her name and seeing her smile bright like an angel, his heart started thumping. He told her his name was Levinus, and that she could call him Lev for short. From that day, they became friends, and his house became their private hideout. He solved a Rubik's Cube, and she thought he was such a genius. He was glad she came to see him, spend time with him, talk to him. All of this was so much fun, and he's never done this with anyone before. He felt so happy. He wished they could do this forever. And so, they pinky promised on this, and the two vowed to always be friends. Lucette's mom came to pick her up, offering a pie to Levinus as a thank you gift. Lucy began to squeeze at Lev's arm, and the mother thought they were so cute together. With Lucette and her mom taking their leave, Lucy patted Lev's head, telling him not to get too bored with her not around. Now he was thinking, what do I do? The more time I spend with her, the more I don't want to part ways. He wanted to be with her, more and more. The Rodante Festival was coming to town. It featured a quiz contest, with the first place prize of sightseeing the royal capital, and subsequent second and third place winners earning 2.5 and 1 million gold respectively. Pairs often enjoyed the festival together, and Lucy wanted to obviously pair with Lev. She had no interest in seeing the capital though. What if she got dragged into one of the novel incidents? She didn't want to put herself in danger, but she was excited about winning 2.5 million gold. That was enough for her not to worry about living expenses for a long time. She was daydreaming about getting rich with her nerdy boy. On the way to his house, she noticed a bright flash from the second floor window. His forearm was bloody, with the Imperial Mage, Labdanum, telling him not to make such a fuss about a small injury. Lev's only job was to live here quietly, as if he was dead. He healed Lev's injury, having taken care of what he needed to here with the jewel. And that's when Lucy came knocking at his door. Labdanum was curious about Lev's friend, since Lev was so fickle, but Lev grabbed at the mage, telling him sternly to leave. And so, the mage followed the order and teleported away. Lev was concerned, noticing Lucy didn't seem to be in a very good mood, but she was actually worried that he hurt himself because of all the blood on his shirt. But then relieved, realizing he had no injuries, and thinking maybe he accidentally just wiped something on his sleeve. The two sat down to enjoy her mother's stew, and chatting, he knew things would get dangerous if she found out too much. He asked that she never come up to the second floor, and she was fine with that. But in return, she asked him to promise he'd answer his front door within 10 knocks. So, he accepted. She then brought up the Rodante Festival quiz contest, and at first, Lev was reluctant to enter. To To this, Lucy then thought about entering with Dominique, and in Lev's head, he started thinking, someone other than me by Lucy's side? I don't want that, and quickly changed his tune, smiling, saying he'd enter with her. The festival day eventually came, and she didn't expect Lev to be so nicely dressed. She thought he looked great, but the weather seemed a little too hot for what he was wearing. She went through his closet, picking out something new for him to wear, and he was glad, telling her he wanted to wear something she would like. This got her heart beating. She thought if someone else heard him talking like this, they might misunderstand. Fixing his hair up, she noticed something peculiar. His glasses didn't seem to have any kind of prescription. But she put that aside, and the two prepared to head into their carriage. Before taking off, they were greeted by Dominic, who grumbled a bit about Lucy not going with him. With Dominic introducing himself, Lev told the boys sternly to refer to him as Levinus. This made Dominic anxious, and he tried his best to be friendly with Lev, offering to teach him how to play soccer and to show him the best lookout spots. However, Levinus was cold and responded, "No, there's no need," causing Dominic to run off. Lucy thought of the whole interaction as strange, but then presumed Lev just needed more time to get used to others. On the ride there, she decided to nap on his shoulder. His heart began racing. He uttered, "If you want me to become friends with Dominic, I'll do it. If you want me to join the contest, or anything else you ask, I'll do it. But that name, I only want it to be for you. Because the person who calls me by my name becomes my master. I leave that name so that it's yours alone." At the Imperial Palace, the current Emperor's sole heir, Delmar Abel Hadassah, was teary-eyed, asking Labdanum where his brother Aurelio disappeared to. Because even when he asked his mother, she wouldn't tell him anything. He begged the palace mage to take him where his big brother was. Labdanum wasn't so sure the first prince would be happy to see him. But Delmar was so sure Aurelio missed him. And so, Labdanum used his magic to put a cape on the prince that would bring him back immediately if he was in a life-threatening situation, then sent him off in a flash. He sipped his tea, hoping the pitiful prince wouldn't be punished for this. Lucette had no idea festivals could be so fun. Lev popped all the balloons with throwing darts perfectly, spun the wheel on a grand prize, and found the item on a scavenger hunt. Lucy felt a little bad that he was giving her all the prizes, but seeing her happy was enough for him. She wanted him to have the prize snow globe at the very least, since it was the item she wanted the most. She wanted him to remember today whenever he looked at it, and he was very happy to accept. Walking around some more, Lucy remembered she needed to stop by a particular shop her mom wanted her to, and while she was away, Lev noticed a blonde boy asking for a boy with black hair and red eyes. This made his heart drop. It was Delmar. He grabbed his younger brother, asking what he was doing here, and Delmar was so happy to see Aurelio again. As Lev dragged his little brother to the back corner, Delmar kept chattering, asking why Aurelio disappeared, and telling him he had no idea how much he missed him. He was just dying to see his big brother again, and hugged him tightly. Aurelio Levinus Hadassah, the name of the crown prince who was born into the imperial family, but was confined because of his humble background. That was a name he had just barely managed to abandon. He noticed Delmar still never talked down to him, despite Lev being the son of a concubine. He then reminded Delmar he was the one who was punished when Delmar had broken the rules. He coldly told his little brother that if they found out he was here, he'd be sent to another place. Lev didn't resent him, but he liked the village and didn't want to leave. Delmar had no idea what his big brother was saying, but pleaded with him to come back to the palace. However, Lev responded fiercely, telling Delmar to never come back, and that next time, there would be no warning. Lucette then found the two, looking for Lev because the contest was about to start. Lev seemed a little anxious, but using his quick wit, he explained that the little boy was lost, so he was helping him, and turned, urging the boy to go on now. Delmar ran off, thinking Aurelio had changed, and his cape started glowing. He wondered if his big brother had killing intent, and teleported back, unable to comprehend the event. Competing in the contest, Lev was fired up, getting 10 questions right in a row, and Lucy was so impressed. The final question was one no one could possibly know. A long time ago, the previous emperor got rid of all the mages who disturbed the empire's peace. At the time, every mage surrendered right away, but there was one who resisted until the very end. Although they were a traitor, His Majesty acknowledged the mage's spirit and power and erected a memorial. What was the name of this last mage? He wouldn't put it on the board since they were going for second place, but told Lucy, since she was dying to know, the mage's name was Labdanum. The lord of the land couldn't believe the two kids knew the answer and wondered why they didn't put it down. He then ordered Johan to look into them, thinking they might be able to help him with something. Enjoying their prize earnings, Lucy felt bad that Lev was giving her his share, even though they agreed to split it in half. So in return, she promised to grant 3 of his wishes. She felt like she was always taking from him and wanted to be of help to him too. He accepted, but couldn't help but think she was getting the short end of the stick. She was always so kind and warm to him, and he felt he'd never be able to repay these feelings, no matter how hard he tried. Going shopping together with the prize money, Lev found himself buried under clothes. Lucy was just too excited, and then a gorgeous necklace caught her eye. She assumed it was probably really expensive and went on to continue her shopping, not knowing Lev was observing her every detail. Riding back together, he asked to use one of his wishes now and pulled out the necklace she had looked at, offering it to her with open case. She couldn't believe he could afford this, but as he put it on her, she could tell he had been watching her the entire time. He noticed her glances toward the necklace and the fact she hadn't bought a single thing for herself, instead only for her mother. She wondered how he could be so attentive. She started flailing around, telling him to hurry up and think of his next wish. This first one made her feel like he was granting her a wish. Honestly, she could never win with Lev. Returning home, she noticed her mother wasn't there. Too bad. She really wanted to give her the gifts. She suddenly got jump scared with a man banging at the door. He explained that they forgot to get her signature before giving her the prize money and asked that she open the door. Reaching for the handle, Lucy remembered she didn't write her address on the application form and felt a bit of stranger danger. So, she made an excuse to get them to leave for the day, and they did. On the other side, Labdanum was snickering, thinking she was perceptive and that dealing with her would be fun. When her mother came home, she was angry, saying, "Who dares come after my daughter?" She would definitely teach them a lesson next time. Chelsea then happily opened her presents, so thankful for her daughter. That aside, she warned Lucy to be diligent about keeping the door locked from now on, since starting tomorrow, she'd be very busy running a general store in Rodante with Dominic's mother. A season passed since Lucy's mother opened her general store, and Lucy was just as busy helping her out. Dominic wanted to help, but he was also busy these days, learning new skills at the blacksmith. He managed to make a derpy little dog charm that Lucy burst out into laughter over, but he assured her he'd get better in the future. With both her mother and Dominic absorbed in their work, Lucy felt a bit jealous. She was now determined to find out what she wanted to do in life. After that day, she spoke to Lev about her concerns, and he dropped a ton of books on her. He thought about educating her in all sorts of subjects, starting with mathematics, since it was the foundation of everything. She urged him to go easy on the math today, and so they went outside to play in the snow. Laying out together, Lev asked to use another wish, treating her to dinner. She couldn't believe he was so skilled in cooking, but when he called her name, she became flush, seeing him hold a birthday cake and wishing her a happy birthday. She couldn't believe he remembered, since she had just mentioned it in passing. But regardless, he wanted to fill her special day with all her favorite things. She then hugged him close, thanking him, saying she's never felt so happy before. He noticed she seemed to have a lot on her mind these days, and was glad he was able to cheer her up. By nighttime, Lucy was fast asleep on the couch. Lev suddenly heard creaking and found Her Highness, Delmar's mother, coming down the stairs. He wasn't expecting her to be here so suddenly. He bowed before her, saying he was living quite comfortably thanks to the imperial family's consideration. He was worried though, thinking there was no reason to see her again, so her appearance must mean there was a serious matter. Could she still be concerned about the matters of succession? However, she'd simply tell him she was glad he was in good health and free from danger, then took her leave. He couldn't believe she was leaving him without giving him any sort of orders. As if it wasn't bad enough he was confined to some remote mountain village, they took turns visiting him as though they were checking on a caged animal when they were bored. He assumed they thought of him as some sort of freak show. Kneeling on one knee before Lucy, who was still fast asleep, he uttered that as long as he could be with her, that was enough. He wouldn't let anyone else get in the way of that. so he needed a plan to protect her. He would not allow her to be in danger. The following morning, she woke up with a tummy ache, perhaps having eaten too quickly yesterday. Visiting the pharmacy, she was taken aback by how shabby it was. The old woman running it was kind, offering a glass of honey water for Lucy's ailment, but she refused. Lucy observed this world's medical practices to be really outdated, and also that the medicine seemed uncommon. This sparked interest within her. What if she learned how to make medicine? Since pharmacology wasn't very developed, there was sure to be demand for it, and she could help Lev as well. They were then suddenly approached by Johann, the aide to Rodante's lord, and he was asking them to spare some time, since his lordship wanted to meet them. Riding there, Lev was concerned the lord had caught onto his identity, but then reasoned that wouldn't be possible. He wouldn't have been exiled here if there were connections to the imperial family. He reached inside his jacket to take his medicine to calm his nerves, but oh no, he forgot to bring it. Lucy pointed out his concerned look, but he just made the excuse that he was a little nervous. He was certain nothing bad would happen. Meeting with the Lord, he was surprisingly beaming, offering them refreshments. Chatting, he wanted to ascertain the two had an interest in studying and also had no intention of leaving for the capital once they were adults. Both he and Johann were happy having finally found their precious talents of Rodante. The truth is, they've been searching for talented people to serve their domain for a while now, but everyone they've taken on thus far and provided education for all left for the capital after gaining skills. They were excited to enrich these two bright kids from the quiz contest. The Lord was willing to offer them anything, teachers, books, whatever they needed to enrich their desired field of study for themselves. So, Lucy happily requested a pharmacology teacher. By the end of their chat, she was surprised to learn Lev requested hex tech and martial arts. He reasoned it was good to learn various subjects. Lucy was so pumped up to work hard, but things would not remain cheerful. Lev apologized, telling her he needed to head home now, and began walking back on his own. Seeming a bit low energy, Lucy was concerned for him, noticing he wasn't responding to her calls, and his ears were super red. She later knocked on his door more than 10 times, and he didn't respond, so she barged in. Hearing his groaning, she hurried upstairs, finding him passed out on the floor. He couldn't see anything and couldn't move either. Ah, he could see it now. This was his punishment. He then heard footsteps, wondering who it was. Knights stomp loudly, maids tread lightly, and Delmar walks with a skip. The Emperor never looked for him, and Labdanum was silent when he walked. The only person who tread so carefully in the palace was his mother. She told him that as long as she was here, her humble origins would shackle him. He begged her to stay, but she left him anyway, not wanting to cause him any more harm. He cried for her, not wanting to be left alone in this empty place where it was cold and scary. But her last response would only be happy, Lev. He was burning up. Lucy had to call someone for help, but he'd grab her arm, uttering, "Don't go, don't leave me." Seeing he was still asleep, she grabbed his hand, telling him he didn't need to be scared. She'd never leave him alone. She then noticed his medicine bottle and felt relief she could help, until she saw it was too thick. She couldn't feed it to him properly like this. She quickly started pouring it into her mouth and fed it to him through a kiss. Thankfully, it brought his fever down. She began to ponder on this strange medicine, but found her vision going hazy until she passed out. He woke up in the morning, seeing Lucy passed out by his side. He didn't remember taking the medicine himself, but feeling the bitter taste in his mouth, he could tell she fed it to him. Then, noticing some of it on her lips, he panicked, remembering Labdanum telling him the medicine could be poisonous to others, and he pleaded for Lucy to wake up. Back at the Imperial Palace, the Emperor was informed that Count Portino had reinforced his troops. He didn't like this. It was like the Count was sneakily trying to expand his territory. He commanded Labdanum to take care of it, because any sprout that covets the throne must be destroyed from the root. He asked his wife Diana if Lev seemed like he wanted to take the throne from her last visit at all. She knew there was a perception of Aurelio being exiled due to his background of being the son of a concubine. But in truth, the exile was actually the result of a prophecy Labdanum offered the Emperor. The Emperor would do anything for the sake of maintaining his authority. But she also knew he wasn't the real one holding the imperial power in his hands. She needed to protect her son from harm at the Emperor's potentially changing will. Lucy eventually woke up, and Lev hugged her, feeling relief. He was worried she was never going to wake up. She assured him she was really okay, and wanted him to stop making such a sad face. It made her feel bad. The moment he thought he was going to lose her, he felt an unbearable sense of loneliness and fear. He never wanted to put her in danger again, and was willing to lose everything else except for her. The next week, the two went to Rodante Castle for their lessons. Johann was happily cheering Lucy on, but she'd be met by a stern pharmacology teacher. Lucy tried her best to learn, having read most of her textbook before coming, but her teacher refused to answer questions or really explain anything. Eventually, Lucy got proficient enough to craft a simple antidote, but still, she felt her teacher was limiting her explanations. Lucy wondered if the teacher just didn't like her. Johann then came in after the lessons were over, bringing up that Levinus got angry at him because they hadn't found a proper tutor for him yet. When Johann went to check in with the boy to explain they still hadn't found a tutor, Lev coldly told him, "I'm not surprised, so don't disturb me. Get out." Lucy just couldn't believe it. She knew Johann was trying his best, but also, Lev wasn't that sensitive. She believed there must have been some kind of misunderstanding. On her way home, Dominic just happened to spot her and decided to show off his wound of glory he received while working at the blacksmith's. He was eager to become Senon Village's top iron worker. Lev then found her and she went back to his place. And after a bit of talking, she was convinced Johann must have misunderstood something about his interaction with Lev earlier. She suddenly asked about inviting Dominic to tag along with them next time, thinking it'd be fun to hang out, all three of them. But Lev would begin to clench his teeth, asking if she liked Dominic. She responded that he was a bit immature, but a good friend. Then, asking about himself, she responded he was also a precious friend. However, she never expected him to ask which of the two boys was more special to her, adding a hypothetical that if one of them were to disappear, which one remaining would feel more special to her. Of course, that's kind of a weird question. She obviously didn't want to think about something like that to begin with. But humoring him, she explained probably the one who disappeared would feel more special. The past would never return, and memories tended to be glamorized. If you miss someone who's gone, don't you think you'd feel more fondly toward them? She wanted him to stop joking about this kind of stuff and smiled, asking him not to go anywhere. And he promised that wouldn't ever happen. But still, on the inside, he was thinking about how he could become the most special to her. As Lev walked her home in the rain, Dominic came by in a poncho, having waited for her forever. Turns out, her roof was leaking again, and her mother wanted her to sleep at his place. Dominic grabbed her arm, and out of rage, Lev grabbed her other arm, so tightly it hurt her. She kept calling Lev's name as he had thoughts of not wanting her to be close with anyone else, wanting to be her only friend, having her all to himself. But now that Dominic was bringing up that they were all going to get drenched at this rate, Lev apologized and let go. Staring at them walking off, he only thought about how he could keep her tied down next to him. At Dominic's place, she noticed a bunch of history books. Turns out, his older brother, who studied in the capital, had a lot of interest in history. He was always rambling about mages, like, for example, how you couldn't kill them with weapons like guns or knives. They also wielded powerful magic and couldn't enter houses without permission. Wait, what? Are they like vampires in this verse? They also took the souls of humans in exchange for magic. The two then began talking about Lev, and Dominic brought up how Lev didn't seem to care about him or anyone else besides Lucy. She just felt like Lev was constantly getting misunderstood. He wasn't a bad person. Meanwhile, he was walking through the rain, muttering how he was the only one who could be with her, that he was the only one supposed to be with her. On another day of pharmacology lessons, Lucy was finally breaking through to her teacher by bringing up that she genuinely wanted to learn how to treat people. The teacher then explained her reason for being so short was that a long time ago, she was asked to treat the skin disease of a young noble lady, and what the family's private pharmacist had failed to treat, she successfully treated within a month, which only earned her being called a witch and accusations of using black magic. Pharmacists have historically been looked down on. People considered using medicine as treatment to be evil. She was just trying to protect Lucy from that path, and wanted her to give up on her lessons. Seeing the scar on her teacher's arm, Lucy was sympathetic, but still, she wanted to learn more. She mentioned wanting to learn pharmacology to help her close friend with his illness, and she knew her teacher knew the art of medicine wasn't dangerous. She didn't want to give up on the possibility of saving people. The teacher smiled, because Lucy's determined attitude reminded her of an old friend. And so, the lessons would continue on a better note moving forward. Johann was glad she didn't give up, especially since most people were reluctant to learn pharmacology, since it was the legacy of mages. However, the domain lord here did not believe in that kind of superstition. Recently, an epidemic had spread through the neighboring duchy, and numerous lives were lost. It made them realize the importance of medicine work. That night at home, Lucy pondered on the hostility people had towards magic, but she definitely heard all the mages disappeared. This made her cheery, believing she was likely living in a period that had nothing to do with the original novel. So she plopped onto her bed, worry-free, not knowing the last mage was observing her from outside the window. On another day, heading back home, Lev gave Lucy a gift. And when she opened it, she found a sparkling pendant and heard his voice. He made it because he wanted to talk to her more. Perfect timing, because she had something to give him too. And under his dining table, she snuck a box that contained some basic potions she had made. But come to think of it, he didn't actually know what the medicine he took was made for. Labdanum simply told him it was customized for his illness. But he never said why he was sick. He started experiencing an intense headache, and even drinking it, he couldn't understand what was going on. Just thinking about the medicine gave him a splitting headache. The next day, he called Lucy through the pendant, making the excuse he didn't answer her earlier because he tripped and fell over. She was so worried he had passed out again. Her heart sank. She later heard the sound of sword clanging outside and found Lev in the middle of swordsmanship class. She was glad they finally found him a tutor, but was still worried about his health. After his session, he promised he was fine, but also had to explain the man sparring with him wasn't his teacher. Franz was the domain lord's personal knight. He suddenly got called by Johann to see the lord, and along the way, Franz brought up how it seemed as if Lev had already received high-level swordsmanship training from the imperial family. He suspected that Lev was not an orphan, and at the very least, certainly the son of a duke. Riding back home, Lev was keen to Franz having caught on to his abilities, despite him holding back. He definitely wanted to avoid Franz from now on. Untangling Lucy's hair, he felt remorse for not being able to share the truth about his identity. But the imperial family was using Labdanum to monitor each and every move he made. He didn't want to put her in danger as well. He wondered if a day would ever come when he could tell her. Time flew by, and spring arrived. Lucy had already spent nearly a year in Senon village living her new life. She suddenly got flagged by Dominic's older brother, Dietrich, and only caught on to who he was because they looked similar. She was eager to learn more about mages from him, and chatting together, she brought up the plot of the story of the novel where the MC ended up killing most of the imperial family, making Dietrich think she was reading some strange books. He explained that was implausible here, since imperial family members couldn't harm each other due to an ancient magic casted on them. Lucy was a bit taken aback. She thought she was living in the period where the novel had already ended, but now wondered if the story in the novel never happened to begin with. She didn't expect this at all. That night, at the Imperial Castle, Delmar told his mother he's been having trouble sleeping without Aurelio here to read him stories. He accidentally leaked that he knew Aurelio was living in the backcountry all by himself, causing Diana to panic. She reminded him he wasn't to leave the palace without her permission, and he instantly ratted out that Labdanum sent him. She sighed, working with what she had, because at the very least, her son hadn't mentioned any of this to his father, but knew that could change at any time if he found out. The Emperor was vicious. She told Delmar to pretend he never went to see his brother from now on, and he agreed. So now, she was on her way to give Labdanum a warning for putting her child in danger. She told him to show himself, and he'd respond, "Oh my, I can never deceive your eyes. I, Labdanum, am here to answer the call of the great imperial family. Give me your command, your majesty." She began to scold him for sending her son to meet his brother, but now wanted to know what was in the prophecy that made her husband banish Aurelio. The mage could not tell her, however, since a prophecy was a promise made among the parties involved in the contract. Not being able to learn more, she asked for a prophecy on her child. She was worried something bad might happen to him. Labdanum offered his services, but prophecies came with a price. At her word, the contract would be valid, but the price would only be revealed after the contract was complete. She didn't like that at all, but would do whatever she could to protect Delmar. Accepting, Labdanum used his magic that radiated light, bringing out a golden apple for her to consume and get her reading. She just heard a voice that told her, "Find her, find the fiancé," and was now convinced she needed to find Delmar a wife. Later, Johann told Lucy and Lev about the upcoming academic seminar and music festival. The Baron further detailed the academic seminars were to celebrate research achievements made during the winter, and a music festival to celebrate the new year. He had just finished a piece of music for the festival last night. He wanted the two kids to present as well, but they didn't have to. Lucy was fine with Lev not attending, since he usually kept to himself, and she knew he didn't like big crowds. But he was just hoping nothing bad happened during it. Turning back to the castle, the Emperor wanted to know why his wife was bringing up Delmar's crown princess candidates. Delmar wasn't even 15 yet. However, Diana reasoned using the news of the recent endemic disease spreading in various parts of the Empire. Countless children were losing their lives due to it. She just wanted to find their son a good partner before it was too late. Going through the marriage candidate list, he noticed all the families were near the western border. These were all houses that supported the Imperial faction. On another night of Labdanum using his magic to see if Lev had any killing intent towards the Emperor, Lev wanted to know if there was anyone at the upcoming Rodante festival who would recognize his true identity. The mage chuckled, seeing his services were in high demand these days. Reading the future was taboo, so it was only right that a heavy price must be paid. However, the weight of something was relative, so he'd be willing to take what was most precious to Lev. Lev's heart sank with Lucy coming to mind. Before he could answer, Labdanum told him, I think one person might recognize you, Your Highness. Lev didn't understand, since he didn't agree to pay a price, but the mage was only offering speculation, not prophecy, as an investment. The days studying at Castle Rodante went on. Lucy was exhausted preparing for her presentation, and asked if Lev was still going to attend, even though he wasn't presenting. He seemed a bit hesitant about answering, making her wonder if he was unsure because of his eyes. She reminded him that it was just superstition, and told him he had the most beautiful eyes in the world. And so, he answered he would be going. Being with Lucy was most important to him. Plus, if there were any hindrances, he could just get rid of them. At Simmel Castle, Alois was crying because she didn't want to be a crown princess candidate. She loved her peaceful and quiet life and begged her mother to remove her from the list. Whether she defied an imperial order or died upsetting the emperor, there was no difference. Anyone who had even the slightest conflict with the emperor ended up dead or went missing. To this, the Duchess told her daughter to relax. She'd find a way to get Alois out of this. In the meantime, she suggested her daughter set her worries aside and attend the small festival being held at Castle Rodante in the countryside. Alois thought crown princess candidates had to refrain from leaving their domains, but the mother told her to just disguise herself so no one suspected her, and that she'd definitely have a fun time. At Lucy's home, her mother was reading a letter requesting she send her daughter to House Menelik. In the past, working there as a maid, she was suspected for seducing her husband, the house's eldest son. Disgusted by that, her husband left his family and the count's estate, but they still couldn't accept that and had him killed. As if it wasn't enough they killed her husband, now they wanted her daughter too? Lucy came by to tell her she was leaving to prepare her academic seminar one more time before the festival. Chelsea hugged her daughter. She was proud of her. Watching Lucy leave, she could tell she had grown a lot. Chelsea reflected on having just managed to settle down successfully here, but now knew she had to do whatever it takes to protect her beloved daughter. Meanwhile, the Emperor learned about the festival going on in Rodante. Knowing Aurelio was there, he commanded one of his men to find a red-eyed boy there and have him eliminated. This was the perfect time for him to get rid of that nuisance. Making their way to the festival, Alois's father was assuring her she'd be fine. The area had no connection to the imperial family, and how would they recognize her dressed as a boy? She was still a bit nervous, so her father told her to imagine the Baron's musical talent. That would be sure to calm her anxious and distressed mind. He just wanted his daughter to have a good day. With Lucy finishing her seminar, she was met with applause. She sighed, exiting the room, thankful it was finally over. Lev came up to congratulate her, getting into his own rambles on her great topic choice and how well she summarized everything, and she appreciated his recognition. They then decided to attend a Magitech lecture Lev was excited about, but Lucy didn't understand a thing. She was totally wiped out and decided to step outside for some fresh air. She heard music and found the concert hall. After chatting with Johann a bit, she was going to go outside again, but noticed Baron Felice was welcoming an esteemed guest, Duke Simmel. The Simmel house featured the first ever female duke in the history of the Empire, who was also the person in charge of the council that rules the most affluent fief. Her daughter Alois was also the female lead in A Bloody Tragedy in the Vladan Empire. Duke Simmel told the Baron their visit was unofficial and asked to not make a scene by escorting them around. Lucy had no idea why they'd be here. Despite there being clear evidence that things were taking place probably slightly before the events of the novel began, Lucy continued to cope with the idea of seeing Duke Simmel after the novel had already ended. Labdanum found her, asking why she was alone despite the festival being in full swing, especially since it was dangerous for her to be in a secluded place by herself. She stood up to begin her way back, bringing up that it was probably dangerous for him to be by himself too. However, the mage felt more at ease by himself. He also didn't like running into people. Noticing his red eyes, Lucy assumed he must have lived a really difficult life, just like Lev. She told him she didn't believe in superstitions, since her dear friend also had red eyes as well. Talking a bit, he explained he was here to people watch, because humans put on the most entertaining shows. She didn't quite understand, so he began his monologue. Not a single person had absolutely zero wants. Every human being wanted at least one thing: to eat plentifully, to be happy, to seize power, to be secure. Sometimes they had a big desire that led them to ruin themselves, and he had so much fun watching their desires devour them. He's seen it numerous times, but never got tired of it. She could now tell this man was strange, and tried to make an excuse to leave. But before she'd go, he'd tell her to keep an eye out for a person who continually glances at the audience, because something fun would happen. She shuddered and shouted at him to get away, but turning around, he was already gone, watching her from above a tree. During the music festival, the audience clapped as the Baron finished another piece. His lordship's performance was truly flawless. The melody was beautiful. Overhearing the Duke mention his daughter's name, Alois, she realized he was talking to his daughter, the female lead of the novel, who was in disguise. She noticed a man playing piano next to Baron Felice, glancing menacingly at the crowd. She was worried he had something to do with what the robed man from earlier had said. She tried to remain calm. If he really was an assassin, who would be his target? If it was the Baron, the assassin would have already attacked. Johann's status wasn't high enough, and Sir Franz was too strong to fight directly. Then it hit her. Someone whose status was high enough and too weak to fight back, and concealing their identity. Watching him stand up, she knew it. She shouted at Alois to move as the assassin lunged in with his blade, going straight for his target. Coming out of the seminar, Lev tried calling Lucy through the jewel, but received no answer. He couldn't believe he was always like this, getting stuck, letting so much time pass, hearing the subject matter he was interested in. He found a crowd clamoring and murmuring about whether or not the red-headed child was dead, and he hurried on through, finding Lucy bloodied in the arms of Alois. As she called for a physician, an intense chill ran down his spine. He took Lucy, telling Alois, "Move," and "Don't touch her," and she shrieked and apologized. Lucy woke up, telling him she was okay, and asking that he don't be too hard on Alois. The Duke then came to his daughter's side, and before they could take off, Lev would scold them into getting an apology. He couldn't believe he was always late for the most important moments, and felt he should have kept his eye on her. But she'd tell him that being here with her was more than enough. She was relieved and just wanted to rest a little while. As she closed her eyes, he noticed the color from her skin quickly fading and begged her to wake up, then saw her blood cover his hands, and he screamed for her to wake up. Where Lucy was recovering, Duke Simo commanded the Baron to not look into this matter any further. Their visit today was a secret, since Crown Princess candidates were forbidden from leaving their domain. He wanted to protect his daughter at all costs. There was one thing he was curious about: Lusette's identity. She just happened to save his daughter during such a critical situation. He felt suspicious of her. Baron Felice found himself in a sticky situation. He needed to wrap up this incident for the sake of his people, but he couldn't defy the Duke's orders. Lev entered the scene, and learning the investigation was cancelled, he became furious, especially because Lucy risked her life to save the Duke's child. Lev got some alone time with Lucy, thinking about how it was widely known the Duke cherished his daughter, and he couldn't accept this. Lucy woke up and mentioned the brooch he gave her must have gotten damaged during the attack, so Lev took it back to fix it later. Lucy was fine, even learning they weren't going to investigate the culprit. The only thing that mattered to her was that Alois was safe. She decided to rest a bit more, while Lev continued to seethe, vowing to not allow any kind of mistake or error like this to happen again. And if immense power is what he needed to protect her, he'd return to that position. He was going to become reason itself. The assassin returned to the Emperor, apologizing for failing his mission, but before he could explain, the Emperor lopped his head off, and pondered if the more one tried to kill Lev, the stronger he became. It was all going according to prophecy. Back at home, Lucy's mom was pinching her cheek for making her worry. She really was concerned. Since the incident, Lucy's been following the physician's orders to rest and stay home. She felt bad for making everyone worry over her, and was a little sad, not having heard from Lev since that day. It was the first time she'd been apart from him for so long. She was concerned he might be disappointed because she acted without considering anyone else. She heard someone knocking on their door and ran downstairs, hoping it was him. But it was just Johann. He was delivering a reward sent by House Simmel. It was a horse and carriage adorned in gold. This was a little too much for her, so she asked that it be sent back, claiming anyone would have done the same thing at that moment. She just did what was right. Johan got a little nervous, but followed her request. Lucy was glad that went smoothly. The gifts were just too much to be a reward. It was almost like they were trying to shut her up. Chelsea was proud of her daughter for being so mature. At the Simmel estate, however, the Duchess was not happy hearing the gifts were returned. Even though the Duke complimented Lucy for being so down to earth, the Duchess was irritated that her plans were ruined. So, she had her husband send a letter requesting to meet Lucette directly. Finally, Lucy was all better. She radiated light, telling her mom she wouldn't return home too late, rushing off to finally see Lev again. But Chelsea's mood would turn sour, seeing a red-haired man enter the shop, saying, "Long time no see, Miss Chelsea." Friedrich's grin was devious. He was here since she never replied to his letters, and put her down for doing the work a maid would do, just like she'd done for his house. He had one goal. He wanted to see his niece. Chelsea told him he had no right to call her daughter that, but he was smug, telling her not to get upset, because he obviously wanted to help. Despite everything, Lucette was his older brother's daughter. Getting by day-to-day running a general store where the business was slow and the roof tattered, he thought the conditions were not suitable for his niece. However, Chelsea wouldn't take that sitting down. She glared, telling him he would not lay a finger on her daughter. He was fine leaving for now, but next time, he'd come for Lucette. After he left, Chelsea fell to the ground, drudging the fact the Meneliks were looking for Lucy. She needed to hide her. She'd never hand her over. Lucy, meanwhile, was a little disappointed Lev didn't answer in 10 knocks. Did he not want to see her? He didn't visit her a single time while she was recovering. She whimpered a bit, but then decided to barge in. He wasn't on the first floor, so she had to head up, even if he disliked it. And hearing a crash, she went upstairs, getting embraced by Delmar, calling for Aurelio. And now he was teary-eyed, asking where Aurelio was. But she, of course, wanted to know who he was. She had no idea Lev had a little brother, but she also felt like she had seen him somewhere before. She figured Lev wasn't here, and the two decided to wait downstairs for him. Lev wasn't the type to speak much, and even with her, she almost always heard the same things. She couldn't restrain her curiosity when it came to his brother. Delmar loved his brother a lot. He thought of Aurelio as kind. He used to read him bedtime stories all the time, and actually came to see his brother because he's been having trouble falling asleep these days. Lucy felt sorry for the boy, then had a light bulb moment. She offered him a piece of herbal candy. It contained a medicinal herb that could help one sleep and relax. Delmar was a little nervous, but accepted it, although mentioning he wasn't sleepy at all. Well, of course, he just ate it. She told him to lie down and close his eyes, and he'd soon fall asleep. He did as she said, but told her she couldn't leave after he fell asleep. She thought he was so cute and promised him, and soon he was out like a light. She wondered why Lev hid such a cute little brother from her, and then found herself getting sleepy, deciding to nap, waiting for Lev. Upstairs, he'd finally finished his Magitech brooch with tracking and recording functions, all to keep Lucy safe. Oh no, guys, he's going full stalker mode. That's when Labdanum would sneak up on him, saying it was a little too dark in here. The two chatted about the festival, a horrible event in Lev's memory, and learned Alois was a crown princess candidate as Delmar's potential wife. He was curious if things had become unstable within the imperial family, and now thinking if something's happened to his father, this would be a great chance for him. Bad time to have thoughts like that though. Labdanum was here to do his job, and read the prince's intentions in his heart, and Lev worried, because the mage would for sure discover his killing intent. With Labdanum reaching for Lev's wrist, they suddenly heard a noise downstairs. The mage recommended Lev go check by himself, letting Lev go for the day. He'd report everything was fine. Besides, Lev's been in this room for a week, so there wasn't much to report. Lev's heart sank hearing this. He couldn't believe he'd been tinkering with the brooch for that long. He rushed downstairs, thinking he needed to see Lucy immediately. But Delmar would find him first, and now Lev could see his brother had met Lucy. Delmar flinched, with his brother reminding him he wasn't to show up in front of him ever again. Diana was frantic at the palace, searching for her son. She found Labdanum, who also had no idea where Delmar was, but suspected the noise downstairs at Lev's place was probably him. Delmar was trembling as his brother demanded an answer for why he ignored his warning. The younger prince apologized, explaining his trouble sleeping and recalling the times they've spent together. He came using Labdanum's magic circle, even knowing Lev would be upset, but begged him to come back to the palace because it was lonely without him. Lev thought about his father's unclear objective, It wouldn't have been strange for the Emperor to have just killed Lev from the start, so why neglect him here? Delmar suddenly brought up Lucy, saying if Lev was concerned about returning alone, they could take her with them. But Lev refused, telling his brother not to tell anyone about her. If word leaked about her to the Imperial Palace, there's no telling what kind of danger she'd fall into. He grabbed Delmar's arm, looking to send him back before it was too late. But they'd then be approached by Diana, asking Lev what he was doing with her son. She told Lev to unhand him, but he swore this was a misunderstanding. Diana began to sweat. Hearing Delmar came all on his own, Lev then expressed his irritation about his brother being able to wander outside of the palace where he pleased. He pointing out the crown princess candidates who were housebound must think that was rather unfair. She was astounded Lev found out, and so was Delmar. But now, Lev had his edge. Rushing the marriage of the heir apparent had to mean there was a problem arising within the imperial family. Diana tried denying it, using the excuse that this decision was hers alone. Delmar did not approve, but she shushed him, claiming she was working hard to protect him and this was all for his own good. Lev continued to press on, saying how amusing it was the imperial family looked at the prince they incarcerated with disdain, but wouldn't say a single word about bringing in a new crown princess. He threatened to take his brother hostage if they didn't stop with the surveillance on his new life. Lev thought it was always strange that the emperor hadn't killed him when he already had several chances, and now figured it was because his father couldn't kill him. Lev would be willing to visit if his father ever called him to the palace, but today would be the last day they ever meet here. After they were gone, Lucy woke up from sleep, asking about Delmar. Lev explained Delmar was actually his cousin. He then handed her the brooch he fixed and promised he'd never leave her. She then held him close, saying she'd forgive him this time for leaving her for so long. All the while, he was thinking about how he set the brooch to be able to find her location and hear surrounding noises when her heart started to beat faster. He would never let go, wanting to be with her forever. Things returned to normal. In fact, Lucy was concerned about the lack of conflict, until the two came back to Rodante Castle, where Johann handed Lucy an invitation from House Simmel. She questioned why, considering she had turned down their gifts. But Johann assured her they must really want to show their appreciation. They even said she could bring a guest if she wanted to. She was completely speechless, with her mom telling her she was fine with her going. Dominic's mom had a look of concern, now asking if Diana was going to tell Lucy anything. But Chelsea was stern, replying they had already talked about this. Lucy's mom began her leave with Dahlia going after her, but Lucy had no idea what was going on. She eventually brought this to Lev, and he remembered when the Baron had told him Duke Simmel called for the end of the assassination investigation. Given his upbringing, Lev knew commoners were insignificant beings to nobles, and assumed they had some kind of motive for inviting Lucy over. After Lucy went home, he heard a knock on the door, where Chelsea removed her hood, plainly telling him, "I know you're not from around here. Your status. I want to know more about it." She figured he wasn't originally from here, and told him he could stop pretending. She's worked for noble families for a long time. She brought up the family trees of the 5 ranks of nobility, and Lawrence Menelik in particular. Lev knew that was the name of the young lord of Menelik House, who died from illness, to which Chelsea told him, correct, he passed away in this village because he was Lucy's father. Lawrence was the frail eldest son of the Menelik family, but Chelsea was always by his side as his maid. They fell in love and decided to leave the house once Lucy was born. However, the house suspected Lawrence, thinking he'd return one day and target the house's power. That's why they took action, poisoning him so he'd die before he arrived in the village. Her husband was sacrificed to the family's greed, and now they were after her daughter. She begged Lev to use his family's power to protect her, whether they wed or he took her in as a maid, making her do odd jobs. Chelsea didn't care. Lev pulled away, apologizing because he couldn't tell her the details, but his status was merely a facade. He couldn't help. Chelsea gave him a painful look, knowing she'd have to use her last resort. She promised not to tell anyone about his status, and looked back, smiling, asking that he stay by Lucy's side. He wondered why he had such an ominous feeling from this. The two arrived at House Simmel, and it was as big as a castle. Franz glanced at Lev, seeing he was anxious. He asked Lev if someone recognized him here. He bluntly explained he picked up Lev was not a normal boy when their swords clashed, and asked about Lev's identity. But Lev shut him down, cold like usual. The two kids got dressed by Simmel House for dinner, and when Lucy saw Lev's outfit, she wondered why her heart was racing. It was strange, because they saw each other almost every day. Yet, he looked different at this moment. like a fairy tale prince. She practically wanted to shout to the world that her childhood friend was so good looking. Having their meal together, Alois thanked Lucy for saving her. With the heroine's sparkling glory, Lucy couldn't keep denying who she was. Seeing Lev, Alois asked if they had met before, but he told her she must be mistaking him for someone else. Since he'd been living in Senon village all this time, the whole room went awkward with silence. So the Duke and Lucy tried their best to bring the mood back to normal to enjoy their meal. The peace wouldn't last for long, with the Duchess entering. She wanted to know how Lucy saved Alois, how a small, young girl tracked the movement of an assassin right before he attacked. She was insinuating that Lucy had colluded with the assailant. Lev wouldn't stand for this, calling the Simmel House hospitality awful. Then, both Alois and her mother were shocked, seeing Lucy's arm had become red and blotchy. Lucy suggested maybe something she ate just didn't sit well with her, and so they made their exit. Lev later learned she intentionally caused the allergic reaction by putting on some oak tree moss extract before dinner when no one was looking. And fortunately, the rash broke out at the perfect time. Lev sighed and looked quite sad, asking if using him was not an option, because whether intentional or not, watching her get hurt was extremely painful for him. Just like all the times before, now she could see she really hurt his feelings. He'd then surprise her by asking to use his second wish, for her to not hurt herself. She apologized, not considering this his second wish, since it was her fault for making him worry in the first place. After dinner wrapped up, the Duke told his wife she was being too harsh to their daughter's savior. He also doubted them a bit at first, but thought it was more important they found the real culprit. No need though. The Duchess already knew who the culprit was, because she was the one who instigated the assassination. She went mask off, telling him she wanted to spread rumors that people were after a crown princess candidate's life. She was going to use this as an excuse to tell the imperial family she couldn't put her daughter in danger. The Duke reasonably objected, knowing this would be a traumatic experience for their daughter. But the Duchess was psychotic, reasoning that Alois wanted to be excluded from being a crown princess candidate, and she was simply helping. Neither of them knew their daughter was in complete disbelief overhearing them. She couldn't understand how her attempted murder was for her benefit. She didn't know what to do. Lucy couldn't sleep, thinking about all the things that had happened today. She heard a knock on her door, and it was Lady Alois. Alois first apologized for her mother's rudeness earlier, and Lucy was touched. Alois then asked which house's bastard son Lev was, because she could tell he was from a noble family. Her memory of him was faint, but she was sure she'd seen him somewhere. She then warned Lucy not to trust people who weren't honest, but Lucy insisted on trusting Lev, believing he'd tell her everything when the time was right. She was sure he had his reasons, because when they spent time together, she could tell he cherished her more than himself. Alois started tearing up, thinking about her mother who she trusted so much, trying to hurt her in a way she couldn't understand. Lucy could now tell Alois wasn't talking about Lev anymore, but chose not to pry. If all else failed, she advised Alois to trust herself. After all, that's the one person she couldn't betray. Alois was amazed Lucy was such a strong person. She had a clear mind now, and swore on her name to help Lucy anytime she needed it. The next day, however, Lucy had the misfortune of a one-on-one tea time with the Duchess. 30 minutes ago, the Duchess sent her maid to tell Lucy she wanted to have a ladies-only talk. The boys were gone hunting till the afternoon with Duke Simmel. Lucy could tell the Duchess was quite the schemer, planning to make sure they couldn't escape. Also making sure not to bring her daughter to the tea party. Duchess Simmel revealed right now she was walking on eggshells with things going awry within the imperial family. She didn't know exactly what was going on, but was sure something big was happening. This became an increasing concern for Lucy, now that Alois and the members of House Simmel, who were characters in the original novel, have appeared. This world definitely wasn't taking place after the end of story. Even worse, Alois hasn't met the male lead yet. It was more likely this was all a prequel. Lucy questioned if an external force, such as a mage, was perhaps involved in all this. To which the Duchess replied, "What a stupid thing to say. Mages were exterminated by the late Emperor." But now, the Duchess was suspicious, thinking maybe the Emperor perhaps spared one. Heading home, Franz noticed the village looked very red for some reason, and everyone sprang up, saying it was a fire. Lucy ran out, standing before the burning flames of her house. Dahlia told her to get away, but Lucy was concerned for her mother. Her heart would sink, hearing Dahlia say her mother wasn't feeling well today, and decided to stay home. Lucy tried running into the flames, but Lev would stop her. The building began to collapse, and Lucy was losing hope, even knowing Chelsea wasn't her real mother. She was still her mom in this world. The two had so many loving moments, and Chelsea always expressed affection, regardless of her feelings. The fire was too intense. So intense, nothing would be recognizable once it all reduced to ash. 3 days passed, and Lucy still refused to eat. She'd promised she'd eat later, just wanting to be alone right now. After Lev exited the room, she cried herself non-stop. He knew the incident was no accident, but had no idea Chelsea would go this far to protect her daughter. It was certain now, though, that House Menelik would never be able to find Lucy. But still, Lucy was suffering so much. He wondered why mothers were so heartless, and felt if they were just going to disappear, they should have never existed in the first place. He went into his study and called for Labdanum, and the mage appeared instantly. He knew the mage could grant wishes for a price, and requested Chelsea's existence to be erased from the memories of everyone in Rodante. To be more precise, his wish was for the fire that day and Lucy's mother to be completely erased from Lucy and the Rodante villagers. Lev reasoned Chelsea's aim was to erase her existence anyway, so better that Lucy forget her and stop suffering. Labdanum then extended his hand, ready to commence. The price? Lev's most precious thing. Lev suspected it wouldn't be Lucy, but instead, a part of himself. Labdanum casted his magic, and Lucy's body began to float into the air. Lev was willing to part with anything, so long as it wasn't her. He was shocked, seeing Lucy's hair go from red to blonde. But the mage told him not to worry. It was just a side effect of the magic, non-harmful. Lev didn't care if he lost gold or jewels, or even his swordsmanship or engineering skills. He didn't mind losing a part of himself, because there was nothing he wouldn't give for Lucy. He just hoped it wasn't his cooking skills. Labdanum chuckled, saying what he took was insignificant, according to his standards. But Lev would find out what that was soon enough. The next day, Lucy woke up yawning to the sound of birds chirping. She had never slept so peacefully, but felt like she had a very long dream. Lev entered to bring her breakfast. In her mind, she was indebted to Lev, having stayed at his house for months now. She remembered her house as really old, having been completely destroyed due to heavy rain. She felt bad for mooching and told him she'd try to look for somewhere else to live, but he'd just make her blush, telling her she could stay as long as she wanted. He was happy with the way things were now. After breakfast, Lucy thought Lev had such a good heart. She had no friends or family, but he was so considerate of her. Without him, she really would have struggled to live. But now, she was determined to stand on her own 2 feet. Looking at her hair, she wondered if it had grown a little. All the while, Lev smiled, knowing his wish was a success. A few months later, Dahlia thanked Lucy for all the hard work at the shop. Dahlia had no idea why she was so busy these days. She felt like she lost an employee or something, haha. Around the time when the memories of Lucy's visit to House Simmel started to become faint, peace returned to her life, except for one thing. She hadn't seen Lev in ages. He was always coming home late these days, and didn't tell her what he'd been up to. She thinks he's changed a little, because a while ago, he pushed down a boy who spread rumors about Lucy, calling her cursed and unpleasant. If the boy spread one more rumor, Lev threatened to cut off his tongue. She knew the boy was in the wrong, but she'd never seen Lev talk so aggressively. Something definitely happened, but she wasn't sure what. Her head started throbbing, and Lev appeared to catch her. He felt a little worried, since she collapsed more often these days. But all she could think about was, when did he start feeling unfamiliar to her? That night, the two attended a party to celebrate Dietrich's return from the capital. After a few drinks, Lev noticed Lucy's cheeks were getting flush. So the two decided to step outside for some fresh air. Sitting outside, she suddenly apologized for thinking he felt a bit like a stranger to her lately. He was coming home late these days, and how he shoved Vincent down the other day. She thought these things were very unlike him. He then bumped her forehead, telling her there was no need to be nervous, because nothing's changed, and explained he's been coming home late because he's been going to a library far from home. As for Vincent, he was just angry he insulted her. Lightly kissing her forehead, he reminded her he'd always be with her. This completely caught her off guard. And besides, if she ever felt lonely, she always had the necklace he gave her. It was made to look like a crocus flower, a flower that held the meaning of the joy of trust. Lucy trusted he'd always be there for her, until one day he suddenly left her. Labdanum would find Master Aurelio standing atop bloodied corpses, and now thought it was more appropriate to address him as Aurelio Lavinus Hadassah, Crown Prince of the Vladan Empire. The cabinet met with Empress Diana to express their grievances about the bastard child clawing for the imperial authority, which was why they sent Prince Aurelio to the Peter Duchy with certainty that he'd return as a corpse. But with him bursting the door open into the room, no one was prepared for the fact that he seemed completely unharmed. On top of the fact that he left on his expedition less than 2 weeks ago, he suddenly tossed the head of the Peter Duchy's king on the table, announcing his victory with the surrender of the duchy, per their order. The cabinet spoke in murmurs about him destroying the invincible fortress in less than 2 weeks. That place was filled with the greatest warriors on the continent. Diana silenced them and praised Aurelio for his hard work. But before he could be dismissed, he made a request. He reminded them he's been on the front line since the king had been bedridden and the second prince was too young. In the last war, his shoulder got injured, so he'd like to rest in the detached castle for a while. The cabinet took offense to that. The detached castle was supposed to be for their crown princess, but to that, he just smirked, reminding them that the second prince broke off his engagement, and the crown princess's stay there has been postponed indefinitely. He's obediently participated in every war for the last 3 years, now 21 years old. Yet, he's only been provided a tiny office. He asked that they show him some pity. Afterwards, Labdanum congratulated him. He was impressed that Aurelio established himself despite being an illegitimate child. Prior to this last war, he had borrowed Duchess Simmel's army in return for helping her break her daughter's engagement with the imperial family. She was hesitant, not wanting to become an enemy of the empire herself, but Aurelio assured her the history of the Vladan Empire would be changing soon. The emperor's sudden madness calling for war with their allies, while the empress was too weak to handle everything. That was when Aurelio took the opportunity to lead the war. Under the guise of bringing glory to the empire, Labdanum knew none of this would have been possible without the contract they had made after Chelsea's death. Aurelio wasn't returning to the detached castle to rest right away though. He was going to find Lucy, not wanting to separate from her ever again. Sitting down in his office, he could tell he was recovering much more slowly now. He wanted to return quickly, so he overdid it a little. He knew 3 years was a long time for them to spend apart, but staring at the snow globe she gave him, he felt peace, knowing everything was processing smoothly. Lucy heard a knock at the door, thinking it was a little strange at this hour. Dominic already came by earlier, so she hoped that it was Lev. Lady Aloise apologized for disappointing her, but the two caught up. Lucy's been working as a pharmacist during the day and developing new medicines at night. She rarely went out and didn't have any hobbies. Aloise was getting a little frustrated, knowing Lucy had been waiting so long for Lev. He didn't return after that day. His things were gone, his room was empty, and there was no news of him anywhere. He couldn't even be found with Duchess Simmel's help, proving he never existed from the beginning. However, Lucy had hope with a letter that arrived recently that said he was sorry he left without saying goodbye. She just wanted to ask where he was and what he was doing right now, but she couldn't reply since it had no return address. That aside, Aloise came here to ask Lucy to come to the capital with her. The imperial family was holding an auction soon, and her mother requested her to buy something from it. It was called an auction, but it was more like a test. People must buy something from the imperial family to prove their loyalty. The key was to not pay an unreasonably high price, but the price must also not be so low that it angers the imperial family. This sounds like painfully annoying social etiquette. Lucy was a little hesitant. She's been avoiding the capital so that she wouldn't get involved with the original novel. However, Aloise would tempt her by bringing up she might see him at the capital. On the ride there, Aloise mentioned the hecticness of the palace these days. There was a rumor going around saying the emperor has been unwell for the past few years, so the empress is currently running the government. But one day, someone appeared claiming to be the first prince, and he's been winning various wars to take his place. Now, there were 2 separate factions supporting the 2 princes. This sounded so familiar to Lucy. Born as an illegitimate child, the male lead gets abandoned by his mother and grows up neglected in the palace. Jealous of his privileged younger brother, he marries the female lead for political gain. And because the female lead happened to resemble his mother, it led him to develop a love-hate relationship with her, sparking a tragic romance with deaths. Lucy's heart sank. She shouted to turn the carriage around, but they already arrived. She groaned, realizing she let her guard down, thinking if Aloise caught the prince's eye at the auction, that would begin the events of the original story. Meanwhile, Lev got notice of Lucy's arrival and decided to put on his glasses so he could look the way she remembered. Lucy decided to wander on her own, thinking about what Aloise had told her. When the emperor fell ill, They tried to make the second prince the new emperor by pursuing a strategic marriage with her. But the first prince returned and began gathering support. So they became nervous and backed out of engagement with her? Lucy thought this was very strange. Catching her lost in thought, Lev jump-scared her. The two decided to sit down for a treat. Lucy wondered if this was just a dream. Was this person actually Lev? She shouted all her grievances about him suddenly leaving her and not saying a word. She'd been so worried. He smiled, apologizing, but also expressed missing her so much. And she quickly gave in, responding that she missed him too. His excuse for why he was here? The person who took care of him suddenly fell ill, so he's been helping with his work. This made sense to Lucy, because there's no way a child like Lev could have afforded to own such a huge house. He had to have had a patron. He then embraced her from behind, telling her not to worry, because from now on, they'd always be together. Together forever from now on. The two decided to take a nice walk in the capital park, and catching up, Lucy explained things were fine back at home with Johann and his lordship doing fine as well. She was a little shy, explaining she worked as a pharmacist now, and admitted she got into it because she wanted to help him. This reminded Lev of the potion Labdanum used to have him drink. The mage told him he'd suffer seizures if he didn't take it regularly. But thinking back on it, the symptoms were similar to withdrawal. He surmised they fed it to him to control him while he was weak. Lucy asked for the symptoms that caused his ailment, so he told her he'd get a cough, a fever, and sometimes tired easily with headaches. But also sometimes his heart beat very fast. And he pulled her hand to it so she could feel it. She retreated back, completely flustered, letting him know she'd try to make something for those symptoms. Lev wasn't reliant on the medicine anymore, but he liked seeing that she was worried about him. Learning they'd both be going to the auction, she asked if they'd get to see each other again, so he grabbed her hand to kiss it, reminding her he was serious about them being together forever from now on. Her face was getting red again. He was on another level of charisma, telling her, "I'll see you again soon, Lucy. I'll be the one waiting this time." She thought, seriously, this guy? Did his personality change after living in the capital for so long? She remembered him being more shy and cute. On the day of the auction, the two ladies arrived glimmering. Lucy just couldn't get used to this though. However, she'd get so distracted she'd lose Alois. A man would then accidentally bump into her, and catching eye to eye, the man asked if they'd met before. She didn't believe they had. She never met such an elegant blonde young man in her life. He tried his best to figure it out, until he remembered she was at Aurelio's house that day, and now she could see he was his cute little cousin. He still remembered that candy, because it was the first time he had slept so deeply. She told him she was sad she didn't get to say goodbye before he left that day, and was amazed at how tall he'd gotten. Noticing his expensive outfit and distinguished look, she could see he was no ordinary noble. However, he'd suddenly bring up her change in hair color, and ask if she came in disguise because of Lev, because he remembered it was red before. His words made her heart thump, and her head started aching as she tried to respond that her hair had always been this way. Memories started to flood her mind. She wondered why Lev looked so sad and why she felt so much pain. And then her hair changed back to red. She couldn't understand what was happening or what those memories were. Lev then grabbed her from behind, telling her not to be scared. Delmar tried to ask what just happened, but Lev told him no questions and that he didn't see anything here today. Taking their leave, Delmar definitely sensed a trace of magic just now. Alone together now, Lucy asked Lev what happened to her. He outright explained those were memories she forgot. That house was a place she used to treasure. The medicinal herbs she collected and her favorite clothes. Everything she loved was all there. He told her he didn't expect she'd lose her memory, and that her hair color would change from shock. She came into his arms, telling him she believed him. She still didn't know the whole truth, but didn't want to ask and make him look sadder than he did right now. While the two relaxed on the bench, all Lev could think about was how pissed he was Labdanum had done a slop job of removing Lucy's memories. Lucy brought up that Delmar was actually his brother. She wasn't curious about him though. She wanted to learn more about Lev. She wanted to know what kind of person he was here, and what he did while they were apart. He clenched his hand, and about to tell her the truth, they were alerted to a sudden attack from the remnants of the fallen kingdom revolting. The auction was cancelled. Lev tried to get her to safety. He didn't want her to leave his side. Lucy asked why the rebels would be here, and Lev responded they were probably here to recover the king's head. Until recently, the Peter Duchy and Vladen Empire were at war. It began when they attacked, hearing about the emperor's rumored illness. So, Vladen's soldiers brought back the head of the Peter Duchy's king, thinking without their king, they'd become unable to fight. But it looks like some of them still haven't accepted defeat. If what Lev was saying was true, Lucy knew it had to have been the first prince who won many battles for the Empire, the male lead of the novel. Lev then pointed her to a shelter she should reach if she went through a passageway, and told her when she got there to not leave Lady Aloise's side. She begged him to come with her. She didn't want him to get hurt. She felt like he'd disappear if she let him go like this. So he accepted going with her, but they were interrupted by rebels of the duchy, demanding they come with them if they want to live. Lucy thought there was no way Lev would be able to hold off 3 of them, but he would then tell them it'd be best for them to back off. 2 of the 3 began to laugh, thinking he was just some naive young lord, but the one in the back thought he was strangely familiar, and remembering the red eyes of the man who slew his comrade single-handedly, he shrank back. Lev lunged at them and struck first, taking the front man out in one strike. The one from the back pointed out Lev was the commander of the Empire's troops they'd been looking for. Lucy couldn't believe this. It only meant one thing. After slaying the rebels, he turned, announcing his full title, Vladin Empire's first prince, Aurelio Lavinus Hadassah. That was his name. The people clamored. Everyone's talking about how the first prince is the perfect man to settle the riots, and Lucy questions why she couldn't tell who he was. The male lead. Lev gets called to go, so he plants a kiss on her and promises he'll be right back. Now Lucy sits by herself, thinking about how he used to live alone in that huge house as a child. Wary of people, hesitant to talk about himself. It was all because he couldn't tell her the truth. The side she saw earlier felt foreign to her. The Lev she knew wasn't the tyrant male lead of the novel. Alois dashes in a check on her. Their reunion should have been relieving, but all Lucy could think about is when Lev returns, the 2 would meet, and the story begins here. In the story, the female lead meets the second prince by chance when he rescues her. They fall in love at first sight. The male lead is unable to forget the female lead, and if he decides to keep her by his side through a political marriage, things will go bad. Alois calls Lucy out of her daze. She was sure they'd be safe having her the first prince is powerful. Lucy wonders why it bothers her so much to hear Alois talk about Lev. Shortly, the first and second prince arrive, returning from quelling the revolt. Although Delmar is a bit insecure, since Lev handled it almost entirely himself. Lev looks their way, and Lucy thinks he's eyeing Alois. To her surprise, he grabs her, and she doesn't get what he's thinking. In the detached castle, the maids compliment how beautiful she looks in her dress. She turns and blushes, seeing how sparkling Lev looks. She thought so much has changed since these last 5 years. He suggested she stay with him since another dangerous situation could arise. What scared her more than the possibility of changing the original story was the idea that she might never see him again if she refused. He apologizes for her having to find out like this. He just wanted to remain Lev instead of Prince Aurelio to her. He was afraid the truth might hurt her. He thought it was strange. He was used to being abandoned and alone, but after meeting her, he began to want to maintain a normal life. Lucy could see. The day she came to this world and possessed this body, his fate must have changed too. She pondered on the idea of preventing him from becoming a tyrant. Grabbing his hands, she told him she didn't care who he was, that no matter what, she'd always feel the same about him. He thanked her for understanding, not able to see the cold scowl on his face. Lapdenham reported this to the Empress. The situation isn't good in her eyes. She didn't expect him to bring a girl into the palace. In this empire, one must marry in order to take the throne. Delmar wasn't betrothed yet. She jolts, hearing Lapdenham ask if she's worried about her son. It's understandable. She held the auction to improve the imperial family's authority. Yet, the rebels from the Peter Duchy stormed in to ruin the event. Prince Aurelio stopping it has only increased his popularity. The Empress grew angry, but Lapdenham paused it with his solution. Since the public can't trust Delmar right now, he just had to make it so they couldn't trust Aurelio either. Aurelio has a flaw so large, he has to accomplish a great deal to make up for it. The reason he was sent to Senon village was because of his red eyes. They just needed to expose it. Lev later storms in to see Lapdenham, and he's pissed. He wants to know why his magic on Lucy came undone. Her hair color came back, and she vaguely remembers her house burning down. Lapdenham was taken aback. He wasn't sure of any issues. There was no problem with their contract. A mage cannot lie, after all. Lev reminds him he paid a price for this. Should the mage not be able to fulfill his end of the bargain, Lev would make him pay with his life. Lapdenham was fine with that, and warns Lev to keep an eye on Lucette for a while, because the Empress has taken interest in her. He thought it was strange though. The rule states that a contract cannot be broken by anything. He needed to find out more. Back at the detached palace, Delmar approaches Lucy and tells her not to be so formal with him. Observing him more closely, it made sense that he and Lev are stepbrothers. Their auras were so different. It's a bit awkward when he explains this is supposed to be the crown princess's residence. He was just curious if she'd be staying here a while. It had been a long time since this place was last used. But either way, he was looking for his brother, so he began to leave. But she stopped him, assuming that he might know things that aren't in the book. She asks if he's heard about a living mage, and he gets nervous and suddenly pins her against the wall, asking if she's met him. Lev suddenly shoves him off, questioning what he's doing to his guest. Delmar explains his mother's looking for him, so the two take off. But now, Lucy wonders if something is really going on. In an important meeting, the queen decides to hold a hunting party to fix the royal family's reputation following the recent riots. The biggest complaint the nobles have stemming from the recent incident is the uncertainty about the safety of the empire and of themselves. So, her plan is to show the empire's power and authority is as strong as ever. The two princes were surprised to hear they'd be the ones to organize this. Since Aurelio made a great effort when the rebels attacked recently, the Empress was giving him the opportunity to attend as a member of the imperial family. He thought it was strange, since Delmar isn't as experienced at hunting as him. If Delmar performs poorly, it might cause those to support him to change their minds. Hearing the Empress say she wanted to invite all the guests staying at the palace, he could see her target was Lucy. Meanwhile, Lucy was at a loss. She couldn't find any information about mages at all here. That's when Labdanum appears, asking if something is wrong. She jolts up, questioning what he's doing here. He felt honored she remembered him, and she wondered how she could forget. So many terrible things happened because of his suspicious words. He asked if she's afraid, and gave her some advice. There are many in this palace targeting her. He wonders how she undid his spell, considering he couldn't sense any magic from her. On the day of the hunting party, Lucy felt worried she'd inconvenience Lev in some way. However, he felt pretty confident. She supposed there were currently two factions at the palace right now, and the imperial family favored Delmar. She told Lev not to worry about her, and that he should do his best. She'd only be cheering for him. He smiles, saying he thinks he'll be able to do a good job because of her. All because she's cheering him on. He kisses her hand, and now she's totally red and flustered. In this tent, Lev tells Labdanum to stay near Lucy. He's worried the Empress might try to harm her. This was his chance to make up for his mistake. The mage snaps his finger, giving Lev an unprompted mage blessing. Lev knew the man would never help anyone willingly, but to protect Lucy, he had no choice but to rely on him. At the same time, the Empress was scolding Delmar for continuing to speak highly of his older brother. She was worried Aurelio would eventually kill him in order to become the next emperor, and pleads for him to take the throne so both of them can stay alive. His heart sinks with her mentioning today would be the last day Aurelio could speak up. Taking to their horses for the hunting party, Delmar looks at Aurelio with sadness. He could tell through Aurelio's cold gaze that he didn't see him as a little brother. They could never go back to the way things were. Eloise asked Lucy if anything happened while they were separated, since she'd been staying alone with the first prince. Their conversation gets interrupted with the Empress calling for Lucy, and the two have a private tea. Diana tells her to leave the palace as soon as possible without the first prince's knowledge. If she did that, she'd give Lucy anything she wanted. Lucy could see she's a nuisance to the Empress. It made sense. There's no room for two rulers in the palace, and she's worried about her son losing the throne. Lucy tells her she can't do that. She and Lev became friends when she offered her help after seeing him bullied. Diana sent him away because of a power struggle, but Lucy didn't want to leave him alone ever again. After Lucy took her leave, Diana called for Labdanum, telling him to proceed accordingly, and so he did. The party approaches the first deer, and Delmar takes it down in 2 shots with grace. But Lev could see what was happening clearly. He thought it was childish of them to drive all the prey to Delmar on purpose. They were trying hard to make him look good. But for a show, this was going on too long, as if they were meaning to stall the event. Delmar nervously suggests they go a little deeper into the forest, but Lev decides to head back. He doesn't want to stay out too late. Delmar sits in anguish, thinking about the old times with his brother. The men tell him it's time to begin. There'd be no escape for Aurelio. Delmar figured what his mother would do to drag Aurelio down. Now thinking about Lucy, Lev swore none of them would come out alive. Delmar drew his bow, choosing to make a different plan from his mother. The two brothers knew members of the imperial family couldn't kill each other due to ancient magic. That's why Delmar's having someone attack Aurelio from behind. Lev was able to get away, but not unscathed. He underestimated his brother, but there was no time. He needed to protect Lucy. More knights closed in on him and shot him down. Delmar apologized. It wasn't personal, just their unavoidable fate. Lev thought about his fate to be abandoned, lose everything, suffer and be terrified of being killed someday. He lamented the idea of not being allowed anything. If he died right here, he'd lose Lucy too. He didn't want anyone taking her away from him. All the while, Lucy worries about the imperial power struggle and Diana's desire for her son to take the throne. She wonders if she could ever become someone Lev could count on. She realizes she wandered a bit too long, and now she was deep in the forest. Some knights approach, asking if she needs help being guided back, but she sees their murderous intent, with them clutching their blades at their hilts. She tries sprinting off, but trips. She didn't get far at all. The knight drew his blade, ready to enter, only to get slashed down by Lev. The other knights wonder if the plan failed. He shouldn't be here, but they'd be slashed down in front of Lucy as well. Lev kneels down in front of her, telling her not to worry. A new era is about to begin in the Vladan Empire. Back at camp, people were being killed left and right. Lev told Lucy to wait here, because he had to have a private meeting with the Empress. Diana flinched as he approached, and he tells her that her son is a terrible swordsman. He has a knight bring the bloody Delmar in, and has him thrown in front of her. She screamed that he crossed the line, but he grabs her hand, telling her she's the one who crossed it. She should have never dragged Lucy into this. For laying a hand on her, he'd make them pay. She wished he continued to stay in hiding. She asked why he thought he was so important. He was just a bastard child. All the prophecies about him were true. He brought misery to the Empire, and he continues to bring destruction to this place. He raises his blade, and she braces for impact. But Lucy suddenly grabs him from behind, telling him to stop. She came in because she was worried. Seeing her trembling, he sighed, telling the guards to simply take Diana away. She fussed and yelled that he couldn't do this to her, but he told her to stop with the empty threats. She'd soon pay for the crime of attempting to harm another member of the imperial family. Being dragged away, she swore peace would not return, that his red eyes would bring chaos to the Vladan Empire, and he'd never find peace in his own life either. The Empress and Delmar disappeared from the palace that day, and several weeks later, Lev became busy with the duties he needed to perform in the Empress's absence. Lucy questioned if she did the right thing by stopping him that day. The more time they spent together, the more she became aware of the time they spent apart. Every time she saw an unfamiliar expression on his face, she felt confused. She felt like she could almost remember something, but not quite. Lev asks if something is wrong, and she rises up, saying she's just a bit sad. It felt like she hadn't seen him in a long time. He got puppy dog anxious, apologizing. He's been busy these last 2 weeks. Even before the recent incident, Lev would have been kept in check by various forces for being a bastard first prince. The Empress lost her support from her allies because of what happened, so he should be safe for the time being. But that doesn't mean people in the palace supported him. Despite how hard things might be, he still looked at Lucy with softness and warmth. So she decided to tell him she missed him, and he squeezed close, telling her he felt the same. He soon tells her he met with his father recently. He's been bedridden the entire time, but their conversation went well, so he planned to make an arrangement soon. Lev is being crowned. He'll be emperor. Despite the good news, Lucy felt uneasy, as if she was missing something. When Lev was meeting with Lapdenum privately, the mage seemed the most excited about his coronation. After the Empress stepped down, Lapdenum began helping him enthusiastically. He first took care of the Empress and Delmar's situation. Then, he even convinced the Emperor to suggest the coronation. Everything was working to Lev's advantage. He questioned Lapdenum's motives, and the mage responded that he's simply the guard dog of Vladan. Lev didn't care what his intentions really were, but if he disobeyed again, he'd have his head. Having no idea, Lapdenum was only planning on playing for a little while longer. Wandering the halls, Lucy would come across her Uncle Friedrich. She didn't know who he was, so he naturally asked if her mother hadn't said anything. Her heart pulsed. She didn't know what he was talking about. She didn't have a mother, but all these memories suddenly came flooding into her. Even though her head was throbbing, she swore she's never seen that woman before. But she seemed familiar, and she missed her. It's as if she's known her for a long time. She told Friedrich she didn't know who he was talking about, and he scoffed, asking if that's what Chelsea taught her to say if she saw him. He wasn't surprised, considering she gave up her life just to get rid of the evidence. Lucy became more nauseous. Lev told her her house burned down for some reason. Suddenly, she remembered waking up to her mother when she came to this world, the two embracing, and now she's horrified. She couldn't believe she'd forgotten her mother all this time. Friedrich told her there was no need to look so depressed right now. He was happy to finally meet his one and only niece. Lucy only became more at a loss, hearing she was a member of House Menelik. Her father was his older brother, foolish enough to give up his house for a mere maid, but the one good thing he had, at least, was a child. Since a marriageable noble lady could be useful for negotiations, she was very important to their house. Lucy remembered House Menelik did whatever it could to gain power, so she could see Friedrich saw her as nothing more than a pawn. She smacked his hand away, saying he had the wrong person, and left. That night, she came to Lev's office to talk to him. She knew she'd never forget about her mom unless someone erased her memories on purpose. Lev tries to approach her, but she looks away. She begged him to tell her the truth. He suddenly grabs her, telling her to wait, but it hurts, so she shoves him off. She then decided to leave. She just needed a bit of time to herself. Lev falls back, asking himself why he did that. She would have believed him if he just told her he made a deal with Lapdenum for her sake, but he wasn't able to say anything. He tries to remember the event, briefly glimpsing Lapdenum telling him in return he'd take what's most precious from him. But all Lev wanted was for no one to take Lucy away. It hurt his head, but he concluded that as long as he became emperor, then he'd be able to keep Lucy by his side forever. Lapdenum smirks, knowing it won't be long before the chain finally breaks. Lucy continues to wander, somewhat confused by Lev's strange behavior. She stares at the necklace he gave her and accidentally drops it over the railing. She rushes downstairs to pick it up, and a magic circle activates. She couldn't understand why this would be here. Inside, she finds the bedridden emperor, weak and begging. He didn't care who she was. He pleaded with her to stop the curse put upon the empire, or they'd all perish. Lapdenum seemed surprised they ended up meeting. Not just anyone was allowed here. Lucy was surprised to learn this sickly man was the emperor, because no epidemic could do this to a body. Lapdenum teases her with the idea it's the curse of the red eyes, but Lucy denies it. She didn't think Lev would do this. He told her at this rate, she'd be in danger as well, and left her with a single warning: leave before it's too late. With him gone, the emperor promises to tell her about the deadly curse, so long as she saves the empire. On coronation day, she went to see Lev. The two hadn't talked since that night. She told him he'd be in danger if he went through with the crowning, because the mage takes something precious from him in return for granting his wish. But that's not all. The emperor's life force was being stolen too. She then brought up how she made a deal to erase her memories, understanding he didn't tell her because he didn't want to see her in pain. Lev tries to answer, but his head starts throbbing. He couldn't do what she was asking because he needed to become emperor. She shudders, telling him this isn't the only way he can protect her, and he kissed her hand, saying to please trust him. The history of the empire would change forever tonight. She knew this might happen. The emperor told her Lev must not take the throne. Since he made a deal with the mage, his soul would be taken as well, but it seems the contract has already clouded his mind. She then realizes there's one person who might know about magic she could ask. She read countless of ancient books inside the palace, but couldn't find any information on magic, likely because magic is officially banned in the empire. So the only person who might know about secret information would be Empress Diana. Diana now realized Aurelio fell for Lapdenum's tricks too. She explains that long ago, the former emperor exterminated all the mages who brought chaos to the empire. He let only the most powerful live. That's Lapdenum. The former emperor put a restraining spell on him and used him for various purposes. There have been many emperors since then, but Lapdenum's existence is why Vladin never lost its glory. Not once in 100 years has a contract with him been broken. Meanwhile, Lapdenum handed Lev a dagger, saying this is what's going to make him into the new emperor. He tells Lev to give it to the emperor when the ceremony begins, and his father would give him instruction on how to use it. The Vladin Empire hated Lev and tried to take Lucy away from him, but now he could have it all in his hands. We turn back to Diana, expressing she just wanted to protect her son. She was so terrified, she took the devil's hand. Delmar was surprised to learn Lucy was able to enter his father's room. It was protected by a magical spell only mages could enter through. He tells her in the distant past, the mages were defeated by the Empire because they didn't work together, and they feared one another. So perhaps she might also be a mage. Dressed and ready for the banquet, she thought that couldn't be. She's never used magic before. Lapdenum suddenly asked where she was going. The banquet was the other way. She tries to sidestep him, and he sees she's acting cautious now when she was so much friendlier before. He wasn't going to let her go though. He began to bind her with a magic chain. She wasn't going to prevent his long-awaited wish from coming true. With Lev handing his father the dagger, the emperor stabs himself in front of everyone. He sees his father as just bones and rotting skin, realizing Lapdenum fooled him to the very end, but wonders why his heart is beating even faster now. He needed more blood. Lucy could only watch from afar as Lev drew his blade. Everyone here believed Lev killed his majesty. Lapdenum tells her it's been a century. The royal family used him as a puppet and slave. but he finally found a way to free himself. He had to sacrifice the blood of 1,000 humans. Making their wishes come true was the best way to collect sacrifices. He cheered for Aurelio to kill everyone here and release him. Fire broke out and the people ran. Lucy tried desperately to think of a solution, but she hadn't read the novel properly. All she could remember was a few reviews. She wanted to see the Lev she first met, the boy who was kinder and warmer than anyone else. Her desire would free her from her bindings, much to Labdinum's surprise. She ran to Lev and thought about how the story was about a tyrannical male lead who ends up killing everyone. She suddenly kisses him with the hope she can bring back the man she loved so they could make their own ending together. On top of him, she tells him she should have reached out to him first. It must have been hard taking on the entire burden himself. She was sorry for letting him go through this alone. Her tears hit the necklace he gave her, and light emanated. Lev touched her face, telling her not to cry. It wasn't her fault. He embraced her. No one ever accepted him for who he was. His commoner's blood, his red eyes. His mom passed away when he was young. He was treated with resentment and contempt wherever he went. To survive, he always had to beg for his life, staying quiet and having walked on eggshells. But he never thought he was sad until he met her. She was the first one to ever get angry on his behalf, the first not to be angry or resentful of him. She saw him for who he was, and since then, she's been the only light in his life. That's why he was afraid to see her in pain. He was so afraid she might leave because he was so helpless. She told him for a short while he felt unfamiliar to her. Labdinum took his soul, so it seemed like he didn't understand the pain and suffering of others. She begged him not to run away again. She kissed him again and told him she loved him. In this moment, she realized what they both needed was reassurance from each other. Labdinum interrupted their sweet moment to fly before them. He recognized Lucy's familiar energy now. He could tell she wasn't from this world. Those who cross the portal to another world are said to be granted special powers when they enter into another dimension. He's also heard they're free from the rules of this world. But that didn't matter. He was going to make her pay with her life. And so, he shot his magic her way. Lev goes in front to protect her, but it all works out. A barrier of light protects them from the attack. Lucy realizes she has the power to fight Labdinum. She taps Lev's lips, reminding him this was the necklace he gave her at the festival. She's always worn it because it's the first gift he got for her, and believed his feelings for her helped awaken her power. Labdinum grew furious and shot a stronger attack, but Lucy charged up and shot a stronger one back, completely obliterating the last surviving mage. The strife was finally over. 6 months later, Diana asked Delmar if he was really okay with this. After that day, Aurelio handed him the throne. He wanted no more bloodshed in the palace, so he was counting on his little brother to change the future of the empire. Delmar decided it was best they forget the past and move on to the future. However, he was curious where Aurelio and Lucette went. Lucy woke up slowly in the carriage ride. She was happy to see her home village once again. The place hadn't changed a bit. They returned to Baron Felice and Johann's warm greetings. Lev was so big now, they hardly recognized him. At Senon village, they buried a grave for Lucy's mother. It was a little sad since they couldn't put Chelsea's name on it. Otherwise, all the villagers would become suspicious, considering they couldn't remember her. But Lucy was glad they could at least memorialize her. Lev held her close, telling her he was sorry for erasing her memory that day. But she didn't want him to blame himself. She would have been sad if she'd been the only one who could remember her mom. But since he could remember her too, they should stop being trapped in the past and feeling miserable because of it. She wanted him to promise her one thing, to consult her about all his troubles from now on. She could handle any sadness or pain, as long as they were together. He got on one knee and promised. He didn't need anyone interfering with what went on between the two of them, and he wouldn't hide anything from her anymore. He told her he loved her and she was the only light in his life, that he wanted to be by her side and protect her forever. Later, Aloise told Lucy she looked beautiful. Lucy felt a little out of place in the dress, but Aloise assured her because she'd only get to be a bride once in her life. Lucy stared up into the sky, and Lev came up behind her, asking if she was done getting ready. She was happy knowing the male lead's heart belonged to her now. The two walked down the aisle together, but it was here Lev asked what Labdinum meant about her being from a different world. She promised to tell him about it later. The two said their vows, kissing for a life where they'd never be apart again. Wow, okay. This was a nice and short little story. A little too short in my opinion. but everything ties in pretty succinctly and is resolved at the very least. I think the heroine is naive and brain dead, but sure, it works out. What do you guys think about this series? Subscribe for more manhwa, but for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.